Welcome back to Renegade Muscle. I am Jeff Roberts, and I'm here as always with Lee Priest and our very special guest, Ron Harris. What's up, Ron?
How you doing, guys?
Doing well.
G'day,
Lee, what's
G'day
up?
Ron. Long
G'day,
time
mate.
no see. G'day, mate. How you going?
Been a while.
Ron misses writing all the stuff I used to have to verbalize to him.
Yeah.
Your column was, honestly, the two columns I enjoyed reading the most were your column, which I wrote with you, and Greg Valentino's column. Yeah.
I had the last word was in the back. I took that over, but then I had, what was the Lee Priest one? Ask Lee or something, where I just answered ridiculous questions. And
what was the one that the picture in the corner was you flipping people off?
There was Priest Confessions. That was the main one. Yeah. Then there was the last word, and then there was another one.
No, was it called Last Rites or something?
Last Rites, yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. Last word was when Kevin had it. Then they changed it to the Last Rites.
That's right.
Man, you wrote some stuff in there.
Yeah. I'm sure when Ron was typing that, he's like, I can't believe how many times did you think I've never put this in a sentence before?
Yeah, like talking about hamsters going up people's butts and stuff. Yeah, it was fun.
That's an average day conversation for me. What he's talking about.
I mean, it was a very nice change of pace from how many reps should I do for curls.
Exactly.
I bet. Yeah. All right. So first thing I wanted to get into is Ron, how did you first meet Lee? I'm sure you guys met pretty far back. You remember when you first met?
1981. Do you remember, Lee?
1981. Oh, yes, I remember. There we were on the beach, holding hands.
It was actually 1993. I believe the guy I was working for at the time, Lou Zwick, did he fly you out from Australia?
He was meant to, but then he didn't pay for the ticket, old.
So I'm not sure if I met you in LA or not until you got to Niagara Falls shortly after.
I think it would have been Niagara Falls, because in LA, the only one I met when I first got to LA was Irvin Gelb, and then I was in Niagara Falls with Irvin Gelb, and I think that's when I met you then.
Yeah, because have you told the story to people about how you turned pro that week?
Yeah, pretty much. I was going for the amateur show, and Jim Mannion was in the gym, and he asked who I was and stuff, and I told him I'd won the national title 3 times, and he's like, well, why don't you have your pro card? I said, well, they said I was too young when I won it when I was 17 and 18. Now I was 19, and I won the national title again, and that's when Lou Zwick was calling me and said, well, you should come over and do the Niagara Falls amateur. So I said, okay, I'll come across. Came across to do that, and he's like, well, you should be pro. So Jim Mannion and Wayne got a hold of Paul Graham in Australia, and they said, okay, give him his pro card. So I got my pro card and did the Niagara Falls pro instead. Yep. And then they sent some photos to Weeda gave me a contract. So my visit of 2 weeks to the States turned into 18 years somehow.
Yeah, that's right. You never went back. No, it was hard to turn pro back then. It was really hard to turn pro.
Very.
Yeah. I know I walk past pros in my area that you would never even look twice. You just think they're a regular person in the gym, but they have pro cards.
Well, I'd make jokes about that. Not like jokes, but I'd always say, it's funny, I'd say the same thing. Back then, if you saw a guy, you'd be like, holy shit, that guy's a pro. Yeah. I said, it's pretty sad now that you got to put pro in your name on Instagram or Facebook to tell people you're a pro, because otherwise they wouldn't know. So I was saying today too, it's like, here in Australia, because some people always ask me, who's the next up-and-coming thing from Australia? And, Josh was probably the main one before he sort of retired at the moment. But, there's a lot of good bodybuilders in Australia. When I say, well, at the moment, I don't really see someone that's going to go make an impact in America. People go, oh, you're so negative and that. But I understand you wanting to give out pro cards. But to me, it's like, if we have a national show here and the guy who wins the national show is good, yes, he might be good for Australia. But if you give him a pro card and he goes to America, there's so much more gene pool over there. I said, you don't want to send a guy that's great here, but when he stands on stage in America, he's not even going to get looked at. So it's like, I understand wanting to give out pro cards to people, but if they're not up to that caliber to stand on a pro stage, it's like you wouldn't have the national titles here for sprinting, and the guy that does a 100-meter dash in 16 seconds, you're not going to send him to the Olympics because he's the best we got, are you? Usain Bolt would be across the line and coming around again by the time our runner got across the line. So,
what's the population of Australia? Do you know?
Like 23 million.
That's it? The whole country?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell happened?
Wow.
Was there like an apocalypse, a plague?
COVID.
That's it.
Yeah.
23 million. Wow.
Yeah, we mainly all live around the coast. I think, yeah, it's like 23 million odd now. So, you know, when you think, because, you know, we're all around the east coast and a bit on the west coast, in the middle. And that's the thing, too. When you think of Australia, we're pretty much the same. We've got the same land mass almost as America, but yet only 23. You know, it's probably more people living down in San Diego than the whole of Australia.
Same thing with Canada.
Yeah.
Canada's got more people than that, but I still think they only have, I want to say like 40 or 50 million. And they have more land. They have more land mass than the USA.
Oh, yeah. Well, you look at England, how small England is. They got 4 times the amount of people Australia has.
How are bodybuilders treated in Australia? I haven't been, but is it a cultural thing? It seems like there's not a whole lot of like talent coming out of Australia compared to the UK and Canada, and the Middle East obviously is bonkers.
Well, not here in Australia, you know, it's like rugby league, cricket, all those sports are like the main sports, because America is so much bigger. Like I said, the gyms and fitness over there is much bigger. Here it's become a little more accepted because I guess fitness, the whole fitness industry is slowly growing around the world. People get more into it. Still, if you're a bodybuilder, you're still walking down the street, no matter how hard you train, and even if you're natural, you're still going to get steroids, drugs, blah, blah, blah. It's like when I was getting ready for the universe, walking early in the morning, people left over from the bar the night before, drunk, leaning on the wall, smoking a cigarette. I walked past them. Steroids, they're no good for you. I'm like, oh, fuck, look at you. I had drunk people smoking cigarettes. You know, steroids are bad for you. I'm like, keep going. It's like crazy. So
they're all dead now, I'm sure.
You know, I never worried about what other people thought anyway. So it's like, whatever.
Clearly.
Do your own thing. As long as you're happy, who cares?
Yeah, hell yeah. What did you think of Lee in the early days, Ron? Like, what was your first impression of the freak he was?
Super impressive. He was, you know, I hate to say one of the greatest shorter bodybuilders because he was one of the greatest of the 90s period. Mm-hmm. It was a tough era. And, you know, back then there were no, there was no 212. There was no, these other divisions didn't, it was just bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. So you had guys like Lee, you had the late Momo Benaziza, Terry Pastel. You had tons of guys.
Vince Comerford.
Yeah, Vince Comerford, the late Vince Comerford. And they were all in I can't even say open shows. It was just they were in the pro shows, and they always did very well. And but yeah, Lee had, you know, he was freakish because you were only 22 when you finally got your pro card, I believe, right?
20.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 20 at Niagara Falls, yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, for somebody that young to have a physique that was already that well developed, and, you know, he already had the what we call muscle maturity, the striations, the splits, things that you don't usually see on people till they're in their late 20s, early 30s. So, you know, I knew he was going to be very, very good as a pro right away.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah. What'd you make of his steroid claims early on? Like, what went through your head when you heard him talking about 500 milligrams of sus and nothing else, and doing a show on just Winstraw and beating, you know, Flex Wheeler and stuff like that?
When did you talk about that, Lee? Was it like later, like many years later, or was it at the time?
I always talked about it from the beginning because I get in trouble. You know, people say, Lee, don't talk about your drug use. Sponsors would say it, but I never say I'm using. I always said back then, this is what I've used. You know, I've used, like past tense, and I always told the truth. And I think we did one interview once where we talked about my cycles and stuff, and then people still go, oh, he's got to be taking more than that. And that's the whole thing. My whole life, I was telling Dave earlier that from a young age, I was always told, just be yourself. You know, if people like you, they like you. If they don't, be yourself and never lie. The few times I lied when I was a kid, my mum fucking belt me with the fucking belt, the wooden spoon. So, but then it got to the point where later on in life, my mum's like, sometimes, Lee, you're a little bit too truthful. Just tone it back. I said, no, you belted the crap out of me to tell the truth, and now I'm going to tell the truth. So and that's what I said. That's why I told people, if I ever used 1,000, 2,000, I would have never had a problem telling people. I'd say, look, this is what I've used. I've used this much. And that's like when I did those, remember that series I did with Tom Platz? There was Ronnie Coleman, me, where they blacked their face out. You could still tell it was them by their bodies. You know, even Ronnie's voice with a distortion still sounded like Ronnie. So I was like, and Paul Dillette. So I said to Tom, I said, look, I've got nothing to hide. Just put me on as me. I said, I'm not going to hide my face. And I was the only one on there that didn't distort their face or have it blurred out. So I said, look, I'd rather I think it was when I saw a Tom Platz seminar when I was young. And I remember these people, they're like, you ask him, the big thing, you ask him about drugs. So they asked him and Tom goes, yes. And he just answered it full out and they're sitting there like this. They were probably going to say, no, I've never used it. And I've always believed when it came to supplements too, when people say, Lee, you're just saying that because the supplement company's paying you. I said, no. When I was with Muscle Tech, I said the products were shit. I had a 3-year deal with Muscle Tech, and in 8 months I quit the company because I said, I'm not going to tell people to spend their hard-earned money on a product that isn't good. I said, if I do that, if I say this is the best product ever, and you go buy it and it's shit, you're going to be like, I'm never going to believe Lee again. And it was the same thing with steroids. If somebody asked me about steroids, I'm not going to sit there and lie and treat people like they're stupid and say, oh, no, I've never touched them, blah, blah, blah. I'll say, yeah, I have. This is what I've used. And I'd rather tell people, look, this is what I've used, but you still got to have genetics and train hard and, year after year. It's all about consistency. But I'd tell people now when I hear these young kids taking these large amounts, they're like, come off it all, get clean for 6 months and go back on, but use only a quarter of it. I guarantee if you train hard, eat and rest, you'll make the same gains on a quarter of the amount you're taking now. I said, you don't need that large amount, but yet they go online, read these ridiculous cycles. This is what the pros do. I had a guy come to me once in Venice. He goes, I know what Dorian Yates has taken. I'm like, really? How do you know that? My mate was in England and he went through his garbage and found this cycle. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No, Jeff, to answer the question, though, so I got my start in this industry in 1991. Working for this guy, Lou Zwick. He had a production company, American Sports Network, and he had a monthly TV show on ESPN, which we'll never see a bodybuilding on ESPN ever again, called American Muscle. So from very early on, I was exposed to all the top pros, and I got an understanding very, very quickly that the pros genetically are very, very different from regular human beings. They're almost like another species. Like the DCU, they call them metahumans, right, Lee?
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
exactly.
They're so different that they don't need a lot of steroids because you could feed. And I saw in the gym around me, I saw people with regular genetics load up on all kinds of drugs. And I knew exactly what everyone, because I knew the dealers, I knew what everybody was buying and using. And I knew people that were using large amounts of GH, large amounts of steroids, and they just got bloated and zitty and they look like shit. They didn't look like anything special. And then I'd see the few people with the great genetics, and they responded so well to moderate amounts. There was no need for them to abuse large amounts. And I'm sure some of them did, but.
And it's funny you say that about those ones I see in Gold's Gym too, the ones that don't really have the good genetics, but they just take so much shit. When you talk to them and they'll tell you what they're taking, and you're like, wow, and that's how you look. They're like, yeah, but you pros take more. That's why you look bigger. I'm like, no, we don't. I said, you're taking more than the pros. They're like, oh, bullshit. How could that be? It's like in their mind, they just can't get it. They're thinking, if I take 5,000 milligrams and I look like this and that pro looks like that, he's got to be on 10. That's like, there's nothing like that. But
you know what? It comes down to nobody wants their dreams shattered. Nobody wants to know in their heart, I can never look like Lee Priest. They want to think, well, if I just found the right combination of drugs, or if I used the right amounts of those drugs, I could look like that too. They don't want to believe that genetically, most people just can't ever look like the way the pros look. It's not possible. They don't have that secret sauce of the DNA. It's a rare thing. It's like, why, look at all the kids that play basketball in America. How many of them are going to be in the NBA? Out of all the kids that play basketball, what percentage? 0.00000, 1,000 O's and a 1.
Right.
But it's not because these kids, the people in the NBA, they worked hard and they had good coaching, whatever, but they were also born to be 6'8", and they had a certain combination of limb lengths and ligaments and reflexes, something special, a special storm happened in the womb to make these people, give them the potential to be that way. And like I said, bodybuilding is it's full of the most delusion. It's the only sport where most of the fans also want to be the people that they follow. You can watch football. You can watch football all day and not care that you're not on that field under the lights. But bodybuilding fans in the audience, they want to be that guy.
I've always said that. I said the same thing because it's like I got friends that play basketball for fun on weekends or golf, or they might play tennis. They do it for fun. They enjoy it, but they're not saying as they're playing tennis, next year I'm going to fucking beat Nadal, or they're going to do this. It's like they just do it for fun. But like you said, everyone that goes into the gym for some reason thinks if they take a bit of gear, they're going to be Mr. Olympia and beat his freak. It's like you said, they get the illusion like, I can go to the gym and train this way and I'm going to get massive. But sadly, they don't. And I've seen so many people. I've seen people not even like give up their jobs and give up a career, a good paying job. I'm going to become a pro. 10 years later, they're still abusing the drugs. They're broke. They've got no job. It's like, hey, how about you just train for fun? I've always said, if you eat right, train right, get the nutrition in and you're consistent, before you even touch a drug, you'll know that you're meant to be a bodybuilder. Your body will just grow and you'll have the genetics to be a bodybuilder. I'm sure it's like the same with other sports, these basketballers, golfers, sprinters like Usain Bolt. I'm sure when he was young and naturally running, someone said, man, this guy's going to be a champion sprinter. You just know as they're coming up, it's like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's what I tell people. You don't have to sit around going, I'm going to be pro. I'm going to be pro. I'm going to be pro. Trust me, if you train right and do everything right, you'll be pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Usain Bolt reference, I have something I usually compare that to with bodybuilding is that in drugs. Usain Bolt is such a fast runner.
Mm-hmm.
You could put him barefoot on a track next to you. You know, some average guy that runs, he thinks he's fast. You could give him $400 running sneakers, some of the greatest running shoes that were ever developed.
Mm-hmm.
Usain is still going to blow past him like he's standing still because
Mm-hmm.
Usain is genetically predisposed to being like a human cheetah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Exactly.
specific to muscle too. It's weird because Ron, you were talking about sports and basketball, and people don't think that. I mean, LeBron James is 6'8", 250. He can run a 4.3. He's impervious to injuries. He's in his mid 30s now, which is old for the NBA. Still the best player in the league. But people don't think like, oh, he must have a secret. They
Right.
just think he's a freak because he's a freak. But when someone has muscle, like if all those things that I just said about LeBron James, if that's possible, then why isn't it possible for someone to be 5'9", 250 with abs?
Yeah.
On a, it's with the sports, they just accept that they're freaks with the NFL and the NBA and the NHL and the MLB. They accept that Bo Jackson's a freak. They don't think that, oh, well, if I was on the steroids Bo was on, I would run a 4.1. But when they see Lee, they're like, oh, steroid freak. It's just like a connotation that sticks so firmly.
I wished I had the article. It was Sports Illustrated. It would have been mid-90s. I think MD might have even published it. It was a big list on like steroids used in most sports, like most common sports that use steroids. And number one was soccer players. Bodybuilding was 8th on the list. I think college kids just to look good was number 4. But when you look at a soccer player, you don't think he's on steroids because they're not muscular, but yet they just used it more for recovery, stamina, because, soccer players are just full on running all over the field for like the whole time they're out there. So, yeah, but soccer players was number 1, but yet you'd never think that in your life that a soccer player was number 1 on the list of steroid use. So
I've had this argument with like football fans because they say, well, the guys in the NFL, they're drug tested. They're not on steroids. They're like, are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah.
You got a 320-pound guy that can run like a friggin' gazelle and jump like, and you think that's natural?
Yeah.
And then he tears a hamstring, and 2 weeks later he's back out there running again. You're like,
Right.
Man, that's like, yeah, I'd always said that when I was in America. Remember when they came down on the baseballers? Everyone's like, baseballers are drug cheats. Baseballers are drug cheats. I'm like, why are they attacking the baseballers? Why did they never go after the NFL? It's like too much money involved there, I think, somehow to sweep it under the carpet. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the NFL might be like a Ron, are you on steroids? Yes or no? You know what I mean? I don't think it's necessarily how could they be really tested? Like, I think the UFC tests for real. They seem to keep it like, because people pop all the time in the UFC. There's very rarely like hot drug tests in the NFL. It's usually marijuana, which is like, so if I feel like if it was really tested, there'd be way more instances of guys failing drug tests than there is.
But
There's almost none.
Do you think in the NFL, though, if they do drug tests, when they do catch someone, it's maybe just a bench warmer? It's never like someone going to be like one of the great players out there, that's on the field 24/7 or someone.
Yeah.
It's always going to be, who's that guy that got caught? Oh, him. It's like, who's he?
To make an example of, yeah. Like Ron said, there's a lot of money involved. I mean, like the low Lance Armstrong thing, Livestrong was funding the anti-doping agency. So his tests were just like, so,
I didn't
know. And then, that's the thing. The way they raked him over the coals too, it's like, what, out of all those cyclists, Lance is the only one taking steroids now? Come on. It's like when what's his name? Was it Canseco that did the book in baseball?
Yeah.
And he wrote about it, and all his teammates, he's cheating, taking steroids. And then 6 months later, they all got caught taking steroids themselves. It's like, people that live in glass homes shouldn't throw stones. It's like, just shut up.
Right. Ron, do you have any, I mean, you're the insider, and you said you knew, like back in the day, you're in the gym, you knew where it was coming from. You knew who was taking what.
Yeah.
Do you know of any other examples where guys you kind of knew what they were doing and it was just like a dusting of stuff and they were just exploding on a dusting? Are there any, I mean, outside of Lee? I
mean, I didn't train with a bunch of pros. I trained out in Pasadena. We didn't have a lot of pros out there. They were all out in Venice.
Hey,
but
you had Lonnie Tepper out there. What are you talking about?
That's true. We had Lonnie Tepper. But even in that gym, we did have a lot of competitors, and there was only two guys everyone got their drugs from the same two guys at the gym.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we would go in on big buys together, whatever.
Right.
I started using in '97. But up until then, I paid no attention to what anybody was using because I didn't care.
Right.
And I was very naive, and it just didn't matter to me. But I would see how people respond to different people, and I knew he just bought 2 bottles of Deca and 2 bottles of Test, just like that guy. So they must be using relatively the same amounts or whatever, and the same drugs from the same source. And one guy would get big and round and vascular, and the other guy would just get red and zitty and start losing his hair and just look like a bloated sack of shit.
Right.
So it was always very clear to me that most people don't respond extremely well. That's a whole other level of genetics. I think they've actually figured out how it works, the mechanics of it, biologically, chemically, whatever. But some people respond extraordinarily well to steroids, and most people are just average. And then there are other people that they just get the side effects.
Yeah.
They don't get any muscle. They just get bloated and acne and hair loss, gyno. Yeah.
So, sometimes people tell you, like, I run a nutrition store, and people will come in and tell me what they're taking, and I'm like, how could you be taking that? It's like something is wrong, you're on this and this and this and Tren and all this stuff, and it's like you don't even look like you work out really. It's crazy.
The phrase I always used to say was, what a waste of perfectly good drugs.
Yeah, right. Give those to Lee and do something with them.
Somebody else could have done so much more.
Yeah. So Ron, you mentioned starting on that what was the show called on ESPN?
American Muscle magazine.
Right.
The title changed at various times.
That's how you started. Like, what were you doing on that show?
I was one of the associate producers, so I would go out and film segments. So I would meet a cameraman at a gym or whatever. We'd shoot like Lee Priest's arm workout or Paul Dillet's shoulder workout.
You were there when we did that good workout with me, Frank Zane, and Sean Ray.
That's right. No. That was wasn't that the Flex workout?
Oh, was that Flex one? Was it?
Yeah. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 workout shows on TV at that time.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Body shaping, the Flex workout. Lee Haney had his own show back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, bodybuilding was all over TV back in the old days, back in the 90s.
Man, when did the writing begin?
Let's see. So I had to, it actually did connect with Lonnie Tepper. So it was going into the 92, I went to the Ironman headquarters to film a preview Lonnie Tepper was doing of the 92 Ironman Pro Invitational. And so I walked in there and we got some footage of the Ironman offices and cool things they had, like old magazines and pictures. And I met John Balick and I met Steve Holman. So John was the owner and Holman was the editor in chief. And I just said, I'm curious, Steve, how would one go about writing for your magazine? He goes, well, write something and submit it to me, and if we like it, we'll publish it. And in those days, it was fax machines. There was no internet yet. Yeah. So I wrote something, typed it up, faxed it to him, and he goes, yeah, we'll run this. And that was the first thing I had published was April 92 issue of Iron Man with Milos Sarcev on the cover. Awesome. And I was writing for Iron Man pretty much every month from then on. And then I started inquiring around. I met somebody from Muscle Mag. I said, could I submit to you guys? And they said, sure. So I started writing for Muscle Mag. the late Bob Kennedy and Gino Edwards, I can't say enough good things about them. They were so good to me.
Yeah, Robert was a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah. They gave me a lot of work, a lot of freelance work. And they had other magazines. They had a men's fitness magazine I did a lot with. And I wrote for I wrote for a Muscle Media 2000 because Bill Phillips reached out to me and asked if I'd like to do some work. I'm like, hell yeah, of course I would. And Planet Muscle, Jeff Everson's old magazine. So I didn't make it a full-time thing until the year 2000. So it took me from 92 to 2000 to have enough steady writing work that I could pay bills with it and not have to do anything else.
How much writing was that? Like, how much writing were you doing a month? At your peak?
At my peak, probably like 20 articles a month, 30 articles a month.
Damn, 30 articles a month.
Like an article a day. Yeah. I did that. I kept up that pace with MD for a long time because we had so many athlete columns. At one time, I think we had 20 athlete columns in every issue because the magazine was like freaking 400.
2007, 2006.
Yeah. So I would do like 20 columns a month and maybe probably like 3 features.
Wow.
And at that time I was still doing outside work for Iron Man and Muscle Mag a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good.
I remember that. I remember reading your articles in MD and then seeing your articles elsewhere as well. Being like, this Ron Harris guy's everywhere.
You don't even know half the stuff because I had, like with Kennedy's magazines, I had to come up with a bunch of pen names because like they got sick of seeing my name so much. It's like, well, why don't give us a couple more names? And so there would be like 10 articles in Muscle Mag or American Health and Fitness from me a month, but only 3 would say Ron Harris. The other would say, I don't even remember the names, but yeah. We had it that way.
That was back in the good days where Steve Neese would be lurking around putting articles in there.
Oh man, the 90s, it wasn't just the physiques, it was just the whole atmosphere, the whole aura around bodybuilding. You know, I'm so grateful that I lived in LA from 91 to 2000. And I caught the tail end of like the golden era. I don't think Venice, after that, Venice, people started moving
like
away.
You said, because in Venice too. Oh, Jesus. Cat's pulling stuff off the shelf. Back then it was like you said, you'd have Artie Zeller, Jerry Frederick, Saloni Teeper, yourself. There'd be Steve Neese. There was so many different characters from magazines in the gyms. They go from World to Golds around the Powerhouse on Main Street, getting all these shots and articles and gossip column stuff. It used to be great times back then, like you said, because the magazines were around. You're always getting these different articles and what was going on, what's the latest happenings in the gyms and stuff like that. So.
And Venice it was the Mecca back then because there was no internet, there was no social media. So if you wanted to be seen or if you wanted to be part of that culture, you had to make your way to Los Angeles, whether you lived in Ohio or Germany or China or whatever. You eventually had to get out there. And so Venice, you'd see in Golds all these people, you know, Mr. China, Mr. Germany, the European champion. There was always all kinds of people visiting from out of town or out of country, staying at the Marina Pacific Hotel.
Oh yeah,
at the firehouse, walking down the boardwalk. It was, and you know what? Lee will second this. I miss World Gym Venice, Joe Gold's gym. That was the greatest gym, man. Oh.
I was just talking about that today with Dave. The one on Abbott Kenny, I think, was the best. Where he moved it to the Sizzlers was good, but the Abbott Kenny one, when you'd get there early in the morning and you'd have Arnold there, everyone was there. If Joe wasn't there later in the day, you had Zabo behind the counter sleeping with the phone off the hook and Joe coming in, getting mad at him and stuff like that. But
it was like a cathedral because Joe didn't allow, there was no sound system. He didn't allow any music. He would kick people out if they dropped weights.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, all you could hear was like a little clanking and breathing. And, you know, it had these really high ceilings with skylights and wood beams and a lot of equipment that Joe had built himself.
Yeah.
And all Joe's old friends, you know, all the old bodybuilders from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they were always hanging around. Yeah. You know, it was really like being in a museum almost.
That's why I used to love being there because all you do is sit in the office and hear stories from Arnold and Joe and Zabo, Eddie Giuliani. And like I said, all you hear was laughter. So you coming out of the office was laughter half the time. Or if someone did drop a weight, all you heard was Joe's voice. Hey! I mean, it would echo through the place. And I seen Joe throw tourists out. He'd come out in his wheelchair, throw the money at him, get the fuck out. It's like, you know, if you dropped his weights and stuff, that was it. You're out of there. So, but you can't beat, like you said, Gold's was good, but it had the music and people. So just like as you said, World just had that atmosphere. And in the morning, if you're out there on the deck, the smell of the ocean air and just the sun coming up, you couldn't beat it. You know, at World Gym in the morning.
The very first time I met Joe Gold was when I walked in there in summer of '88. I was too chicken shit. I lived there that summer, and then I went back to Boston. But anyway, I was too chicken shit to actually go inside and work out at Gold's or World. But I wanted one of those World Gym tank tops with a gorilla that said World Gym Venice. So I went in there and scared shitless. And I went up to the counter, and Joe was there. I said, could I get one of those, the gray one with the pink lettering? He's like, what size? I said, small. He goes, small's for midgets. He threw a medium. He goes, here's a medium. $15.
Yeah, it's funny.
Nice.
Dave told me he just spoke to Romano today, and they were talking about that. And he goes, Romano was saying Lee Priest was the only one Joe Gold gave free T-shirts to. Everyone else had to pay. I said I had a stack of T-shirts. Joe was always giving me these T-shirts and stuff because I got on good with Joe. I'd help him out, go to the grocery store with him. If he had to travel on the plane, I'd go with him. And when he passed away, he left me his dogs and stuff. And yeah, but some of the stuff we'd get up to, I was telling the story once where I was out on the outside deck training because, he said Joe made all his equipment. He had a few bits and pieces that he brought, but everything was pretty much he made. I remember I was on the outdoor deck and he slides that window open. He's like, hey, fat boy, because you always called me fat boy, even if I was in shape. Hey, fat boy, get over here. I'm like, okay, what is it? So I go into the office. I didn't know, but there was this salesman there and he had this calf equipment. It was just like a handle, like you hold this way, and the thing went down on the bottom. It just had like a rounded step that you put your calves on and just stretch them.
Yeah.
He's like, fat boy, get on that. I said, okay. I said, what's it for? He goes, your calves. So I'm on it. I'm going up and down. He goes, what do you think of that, fat boy? Would you use it? I'm like, probably not. He turns straight to this guy and goes, get your fucking piece of shit and get out of here. I was like, this guy was trying to sell it to Joe. So Joe asked me to come try it out. When I said I hated it, he says to the guy, take your fucking piece of shit and get out.
Yeah, that equipment that he built, I think he built it all like in the late 60s.
Yeah.
And you see it in the movie Pumping Iron. You see it in the pictures in the book. And I don't know if it's still there, but I remember I trained in Gold's Venice for a while. And they still, for some reason, that's where a lot of that stuff ended up, not at World Gym. And I recognized the pieces from the movie Pumping Iron. And it was still being used, at that time it would have been like 25 years after the fact, 30 years.
And it's like I told people too, for it to be outside on the deck, a lot of it was outside even, for it to be outside in that ocean breeze air and stuff and the rain and whatever, it was the smoothest equipment you would ever use. It wasn't rusted. It wasn't whatever. It was just like the greatest equipment ever. And I think Joe had all the angles too, because when he made my dumbbells out at Inglewood where he had his workshop, I'd go out there and he made these solid dumbbells from like 150 to 200s. And dumbbells these days, you got a 200-pound dumbbell, it's like this high. Yeah. You can't even press it. But he made them so compact. I'd have to go out there once or twice a week just to get the hand grip, the right width and the thickness and stuff. And he put a lot of time into all the equipment he made. I think that's why if anyone abused the equipment, it was like, hey, it's like you're hurting his children if you slam the weights down and stuff. So
it was a cool deal.
They were good times back then. It's like some of the stories you would hear and that. But Eddie Giuliani was just as funny when him and Arnold were in the gym in the morning. Or I used to train with Roland Kickinger, and Arnold would be putting shit on me and Roland. He's like, hey, Roland, why does the shorter guy always want to train with the taller guy? I'd yell back at Arnold, yeah, but why is the shorter guy always stronger? He's like, oh, very, very funny. It's like, I remember the time I was getting ready for the 97 Olympia, and I was doing leg extensions because I had those 2 leg extensions just near the squat rack. I was on one, Arnold was on one, and Eddie was waiting there, and I was just getting into it. Ira that used to train, Lou was training me, and he's like, Lee, why are you going so hard? It's like Arnold's asking me, and him and Eddie are standing there. I said, you know what? You're right. I said, when I get to your age, like you two, I said, I'm going to look like shit anyway. So what's the point? Arnold's like, what?
Lee talking shit to Arnold. Nice.
I've always had fun like that. It's like when I did when he did that encyclopedia of bodybuilding, when he redid it, and I was in the gym there doing those photos for it with him, and it was so funny because I'm doing the exercise and he's like, Lee, this is one of my favorite, this tricep exercise, do that one, do this one. I'd be just about to do it. Arnold's like, stop. I was sweating or something. So Arnold comes over and he wipes the sweat off me. Okay, carry on. I start training. Stop. Arnold comes over, gets a bit of oil. I said to the photographer, I said, fuck the training shots. I said, every time Arnold wipes my sweat off or puts oil on me, I said, get photos of that. That's what I want. I want photos of Arnold dabbing my sweat off.
Yeah. That's awesome. Do you have any specific stories, Ron, like Lee stories that you remember maybe coming up, or the things that happened, or things that you saw that maybe you haven't talked about too much?
It might be easier to ask Ron. Ron, when was Lee never in trouble?
I don't know. He was always like, he dated a lot of hot fitness girls, so that's trouble right there. That's a lot of drama. No, I mean,
I learned my lesson there.
But no,
you think I'm crazy? Date a fitness girl.
Yeah. I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with Lee out there because he was with Weeder and everything. We didn't, I remember we shot a couple workouts here and there, but no, not as much as I would have liked to.
Right.
I do have a lot of stories. They're just not about Lee.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for watching another podcast here at Think Big Bodybuilding Media. And thank you to our great sponsor, TrueNutrition.com, for making this all possible. TrueNutrition.com is owned by Dante Trudell, the creator of DC Training. He wanted to create a supplement company that offered high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. High-quality protein powders, just about every type you could think of. Huge variety of flavors, plus health and performance supplements. Check them out, TrueNutrition.com. And hey, if you use our code ADVICES, you directly support our podcasting. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the program.
How about currently? Do you have any? You're a big time insider. Do you have any inside stuff right now on Phil or Rami, or anything that you can say that maybe is not quite out there yet? Anything you've heard about Phil's? Do you have any idea what Phil looks like? I haven't seen anything.
No, he hasn't put out any pictures or videos, and I don't think he will. Maybe like a week out he will. He's gonna keep things under wraps. I'm sure he is. As for Rami, I'm just guessing. I think Rami's gonna ask for a special invite to the Olympia, and he'll get it.
Yeah.
That special invite thing, they can do whatever they want. There are no rules about it. They could invite 3 or 4 people if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
And I think this year, sorry, I think this year too, just due to COVID and trying to make the Olympia a bit more spectacular. Yeah. I think people are saying they shouldn't. People say he should, but I think just get the interest because he's got so many fans, and like you said, a lot of people can't get there. I think they'd be silly not to this year. Okay, if it was a open Olympia and all the crowd could get there and it would be sold out, but I think this year just to get the numbers in, get more people watching, get the excitement up, I think they'll probably throw him in. So.
Yeah, I'm very, very upset that Flex Lewis pulled out. Very upset.
I was hoping.
Same.
I wanted to see him in great condition, full up there, and
that was a bummer.
I think he would have been top 3.
I said top 3, and if the other 2 slipped, I could easily see him winning it because he's got that 3D freaky look, and he's not really lagging any body parts, and if one of the others, like if Phil slipped up or Brandon or someone slipped up, and actually Brandon's looking pretty good in some of those photos he's been putting up. So if he can keep that fullness and thickness to him, it's going to be a good show. So
yeah. Have you heard anything about Flex, Ron? Anything? Has he put anything out?
No, he just did that. He did that initial announcement on Instagram on, was it Friday or Saturday? I think it was Friday.
Yeah.
And he hasn't followed up to say if it's an injury. I'm guessing it's my feeling is it's something like something that was going on maybe with the shoulder, something that he was like training around and through the pain.
Right.
And he was probably going to destroy the shoulder permanently if he kept going and trained for the Olympia. That's my guess.
Because he said he was thinking about like toughing it out, but then he decided not to. So it couldn't be anything too devastating. I mean, who knows? But it sounds like it was something that he could have kept pushing if he wanted to.
Yeah.
So
I'll admit it was my fault. I've been messaging him, telling him I got a special invite and I was coming to do the Open, and I sort of scared him off. Okay, I'll admit it. I'm not doing it, Flex. It's okay.
You've got him all nervous.
Lee, when was your last show, Lee? When was the last time you competed?
And my last show was when I won the NABA Overall Universe in 2013.
Oh wow!
But my last IFBB show was 2006, and then I took 7 years off and then won the Universe. Yeah. And then I was going to compete in the Worlds in 15, and that's when I had the car accident. And since then, it's been a downward spiral.
No, I know what's you have a serious neck injury, right?
Crushed nerve, yes. So pretty much this tricep here and chest here is atrophied a bit, and so is the back. So I've only got half the strength here. So 5.5 years of doctors, lawyers, and I thought the medical was over. Now they send me a thing. Next Monday, I got to go see another doctor on the defendant's side. That's just measure it. Look, it's just, you can see I'm out. Even like they come up with, well, you're still training. I said, yeah, I'm training, but how I train now is nothing like I used to train. And I said, and even if I can lift weights, you got to understand, I'm not judged on what I lift. I'm judged on how I look. If I've still got a 21-inch arm here and a 17.5-inch arm over here, and you got a full chest here and half the chest here's missing and half your deltoid's missing here, I said, you can't go on stage looking like that unless I can come up with some new category where I can stand side on and be a bodybuilder. Then all of a sudden, men's physique, bodybuilder, men's physique. It's like, those men used to do, men would be half men. Men would get dressed up as half men, half women and just turn. I could do that.
Yeah. You could do the 1980 Arnold and just refuse to hit most poses. Cool, that one.
What happened there? Who wouldn't hit poses?
That's the story. Apparently, in 1980, when Arnold won the Olympia, he would refuse to hit certain like back poses and stuff like that
During the judging?
Yeah.
You can actually watch.
You haven't heard that?
No. So he stood there and everyone else would hit the pose?
So like when he would do, I think there was certain poses that Arnold was vulnerable in, obviously. And then he had the big front double and he had the side chest, and the judges would call a side try, and he would like, instead of doing the side try, he would like throw a front double or something. Like he was just specifically doing the shots he looked good in.
I think when they asked for a side try on one of them, he did that one where he puts his arms like this even. But you can actually watch it if you can find a copy. It's called The Comeback. Have you seen it?
I've never watched it. I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah, Platts looks great on there and stuff like that. Platts training legs and stuff on there. But it's not a bad movie to come back if you get to watch it. But the only thing is, even the guy that filmed it here in Australia, he's even talking about the very end of it when they announce Arnold the winner. Everyone was booing like crazy, so they had to dub. They dubbed
applause.
Over the top,
Oh my
well, they said Weeder wouldn't even come out and give him the award.
Wow.
Because the crowd was just that. That's when him and Mensa almost got into it backstage, and so
I've never seen a picture of Arnold hitting a side tricep. That I can't recall ever seeing one.
It's, and even like abs and thigh is rare too.
Yeah.
I think he's, like I said, his tricep was more doing his arm just down like this, where it became more of a push the chest over and arm out, but never a proper side tricep I can't think of.
Yeah. He said on years ago on Pro Bodybuilding Weekly, they had Arnold on. I remember him saying that year backstage he had realized he had made a mistake and he shouldn't be there, and he was very, very nervous and everything. Yeah, he said. Once he saw the other guys and like the comparisons were happening, and somebody told him that like you're not in first, or you're getting outclassed out there, and he said that he was like I'm such an idiot for being here and stuff like that. Yeah, he was pretty shaken at that show apparently. This was an interview from back in the Pro Bodybuilding Weekly heydays.
Wow.
Or Pro Bodybuilding World with Dan and Bob.
Well, he wasn't even really training for that, was he? Wasn't he getting ready for Conan at the time or one of those movies? And he's like, okay, well, because I'm dieting for a movie, I may as well go give the contest a go. So
yeah, I guess he was somewhere around 220 at that show, maybe at 6 foot. Now you got guys like 5'2", 220.
Right. Right. Story. Yeah, one of the topics going on right now, we touched on it briefly with Flex, is like people are talking about like pros pulling out, and are they pushing it too hard and stuff like that. What do you think? What do you make of that, Ron? Do you think the sport's gotten to a place where it's like kind of we need to pump the brakes a little bit, or do you think because some people think it's going the other direction, some people think it's becoming a little more health conscious and safe, but then there's a lot of people who think that it's like people are just pounding it away. And what do you think?
No, I don't think it's getting any safer, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think most of these guys want to be using the amounts they're using, but they're trying to keep up with. If they hear this guy's using 2 grams of test and 2 grams of tren and 10 IUs of GH a day, they're like, well, shit, I better use that much too, or else I'm going to get left behind. I'm going to get my ass kicked. And I blame the coaches, the gurus, for a lot of this too, because they're the ones who are writing out the protocols for these guys.
Yeah.
And I find it hard to believe that anyone needs those amounts. Even a guy who's competing at 250, 270 pounds, I don't think he needs, 10, 6, 8, 10 grams of steroids a week and 15 IUs of growth. It's ridiculous. But no, is it going to get better? No, I think that's why when Classic Physique was created, I think that was a chance for it to get a healthier look and a less of a drug look, if you will. Yeah. And those guys, they look fantastic. They're not bloated. They're not out of breath. They look athletic, most of them.
Right.
Do you find too, though, or just me, and we're looking at it sometimes now too, that everything, because we live in this instant society, we've got to have it now. It's like young kids when they get their pro card or whatever, they want to go from being this, but then they want to be this freak within a year or two rather than before. Yes, we used a bit of gear before, but you look over the years, Kevin, NASA, it was like a gradual process, it'd be over like 6 or 7 years, you'd see him getting bigger and bigger. Now you'll see a guy now get his pro card, and a year and a half later he's like this, but then sadly, 3 years later, they're gone, or they've either died sadly, or their organs have packed it in, and medical reasons they got to stop. There's like, back then it's like, yes, we used gear and stuff, we knew what it was. You tried to do it as safely as you could, but there was still this longevity involved. When you see like Sean Ray, he had good longevity. When you see Dexter Jackson and a lot of these other guys that, even Ronnie with his injuries, if Ronnie didn't have those injuries, he'd still be training just as hard. Now, you had these guys that had this longevity, but now you see these younger guys. It's almost like when you see something like, remember the old singers in the band, Rod Stewart and all these, they'd start off in a little pub, they'd work their way up and become a singer, and they're still around. Now you get American Idol or The Voice, someone goes bam onto the scene, they get 1 or 2 hits, 2 years later they're gone. And it seems like in bodybuilding now that's happening. These people want to be so big so quick, they don't want to put the years and years and years of foundation work and effort into it, that they do come out really big, they hit the scene big, and then a couple of years later, boom, they're gone due to organ failure, or they just can't keep up that demand on the body and doing that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's the culture now is so much more instant gratification. I'm 51, so I can talk about days when you had to write letters. I had a pen pal in Great Britain when I was like 9 years old. It took me like 2 years to have a conversation with this person, this other girl. Movies would come out in the theater, and then if you had to wait like a year for them to come out on TV with all the good parts cut out and commercials and all that. This was before the VCRs. That was like the only way. You either saw a movie in the theater, or if it was gone, you missed it until maybe it would come on TV. So, kids now, these kids, they're not used to waiting for anything. So I've had conversations with them, and they ask me about, the first thing they ask about is drugs, and they haven't even started training yet.
Oh, yeah.
They say, well, how long is it going to take me to look like that or get my pro card? I'm like, 5, 10 years. It'll take you probably like 5 or 10 years to get that physique. They're like, no, that's too long. No. I want to do it in 1 year.
Yeah. I know.
Right. I know I have kids say, like, I want to put an inch on my arms. I'm like, well, the last inch I put on my arms took me 10 years. It's like, if you have a 20-inch arm and you're going to make it 21, you're in for the long haul, unless you get fat or whatever, a true inch on your arm. Like, people just think it's going to be like, or want to be X amount of weight or whatever. It's like, they don't, you see someone like who's in shape or has a little bit of muscle, and they don't realize like that person may have been pounding away for years and years and years to look like that. It's not like they don't have any secret.
They don't realize too when they say, I want to put on, always pick a weird number. I want to put on 5 kilos of muscle, say like 10 pounds. But do they realize if you were to lay out 5 kilos of chicken breast, just lean meat, that's a lot of muscle to put over your body. But yet they think they can do it every year after year. I said, look, even if you were to put on 1 kilo, 2 pounds of muscle, look at 1 kilo of just lean meat. That's a fair bit of muscle. And depending on your frame, a shorter person, like someone like me, 1 or 2 kilos a year, that's a big noticeable difference. So normally when I first, at the Niagara Falls, I think I was like 181 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilos. Yeah, and then I think the following show I did a year later, I was about 189. So I was sort of always, then the next year I was like around the 195-ish. So each year I was always going up little by little, whereas now they want to go from this to, I competed at 200, next show 260. I'm like, yeah, but what costs? what cost is that on your body to do that type of thing? And it's weird because back in the day too, when you'd see pros, you would see a lot of younger pros, DeMeo, Shane DeMora, myself. There were so many guys who were good, but they're in their early 20s, but yet they still looked healthy. They looked vibrant. They looked like they were 20. I'm seeing some guys now who are in their mid-20s, and they look like they're 40-odd. They look like they're old, and like they look like they're almost washed up at the end of their careers. They don't look that young, vibrant. They almost look like, I wouldn't say toxic looking, but they just look like, you can see someone that's young and vibrant. They look healthy, like, wow, he looks healthy. And now you see some of these young bodybuilders, and you're like, he looks good, but he doesn't look healthy.
Purple.
He just, I don't know, he just has that weird look to him. And it's just like, I don't know, even back then when you see people like Barry DeMay, yes, you had all these guys with great physiques, but you put him in normal clothes, they look like some could have been models. Bob Paris, Barry DeMay, dress them in a nice suit, they could be a model. They had good physiques. When they took the clothes off, you're like, wow. But you see these young guys today, if they put clothes on stuff, you're like, oh, he just looks like this big, looking around, walking around like he's going to drop dead at any point, which is sad, really, because bodybuilding or any fitness can be healthy. To what degree, we never know. Like Ron said before, some guys can take steroids, have no side effects. Some people can take steroids and, kidneys, organs start shutting down after the first cycle. So what's a safe amount? We're never going to know. But I've always said if you are going to use them, never abuse it. It's like alcohol. You can have 1 or 2 drinks, be happy, be nice, get a little bit tipsy. You can take too much. And, some people are happy drunk. Some people get violent and go beat the shit out of people. So it's like, it's just the same as people's genetic makeup. But I think with bodybuilding, they just need to, as Ron says, before it used to be, how do you train? What do you eat? This and that. First question, what should I take? How much gear? How long have you been training? Oh, 2 weeks. I'm like, what? I said, how can you even, where's the foundation? I said to these young kids, don't even take gear, because for the first 5 years, if you're young, your natural testosterone, go as far as you can. Tap out your natural system before you start adding shit to it. And like I said, these kids are 19, 20, 21, taking all these tests. They've just shut their natural testosterone level down to nothing because the body, I'm getting all this test, I'll stop making it. So when they come off it at 25, they've got to go on TRT type stuff at 25, 26 years old because they've shut their system down. I remember back in the day when I was dating a few of those fitness girls, some of them back in the day when T3 was the big thing, the thyroid drugs. Oh, they would take so many. I remember Alfie Newman there. She took a lot of that. Remember, she was great in shape, but when she come off it, boom, she was like a Lee Priest in the off season. It's like, but the thing was they're taking so much, they're shutting down their natural system. So when a lot of those girls had to stay on T3 therapy and the thyroid therapy for the rest of their lives because they shut their own system down just from abuse, which is sad to see. But I remember, like, even back when Ron was doing the magazines earlier on, even you'd get a steroid article here and there. Okay, they come up, and then it got more prevalent, But then when social media come out and all these more message boards, every topic, you could put up a training article, 500 views, something such steroid article, 20,000 views. It's like, that's all they wanted to know about was the drugs. And I'm like, this is just getting crazy. There's more to it than that. But sadly, that's all they want to focus on.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of times, I try to talk young people out of using them, but if they're if they're determined to use them anyway, I try to talk them into starting out very, very moderate. Because they say, well, I want to start off on a gram a test, 800 milligrams of tren. I said, hold on. I said, why don't you try 400, cut that by 2/3. Then you'll know. Because if you start out high, you'll never know if a lot less would have been just as effective. Plus, if you start out high, where do you go from there? You're just going to have to keep going up and up and up. Yeah. It's going to get toxic real fast.
Yeah. What do you think the solution is, Ron? Do you think it's just like I always thought the judging could be, now we have classic, of course, but I always thought the judging could be maybe a little bit less on size and condition and a little bit more on like, it's a healthier look, I guess, as opposed to like not rewarding guys who look like lab experiments. Cause that look where it's like, oh man, like we love it. But like hardcore bodybuilding fans love it. But at the same time, it's like, I think there might be a balance that needs to be struck.
I think they have made good strides in that because you don't see anybody with big bubble guts and raging gyno and cyst-like acne-winning shows. You don't see ugly bodies. Look at like Sean Roden. 10 years before that, Sean Roden would have never won the Olympia. He would have been way too small. That was the Ronnie era.
Yeah.
Even Brandon has got a much more classic shape to him and a smaller waist.
Yeah, clean.
Nobody with a big gut is doing well in pro bodybuilding today.
Right.
So I think they have made some good strides toward making it a less toxic look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I like when classic coming, but I was always saying to people, I said it's a shame that we got to that point that we had to make classic, because back in the day, yes, you had big guys, but when you had the Bob Harris's, Barry DeMay, even Dillette for his size, they still had a classic look to them, even though they were big and freaky. So it's like it just got that far out of hand. We had to make this class called classic, which is what bodybuilding really should be to begin with. Yes, you can get freaky body parts and stuff, but I said I love the freaks too, but I've always said, look, if there's freaks up there and they look freaky and they're bloated and stuff, don't give them first. But, the crowd's going to love them because they're just big and freaky. Some of those guys have the biggest fan bases more than the guys winning shows. But that's the sad thing. When they started rewarding these guys for a while there with the stomachs, people are like, well, shit, I got to get bigger and bigger. And sadly, look at Flex. I think his best, he even said he looked when he weighed 218 when he won the Arnold, the Christmas tree. But then Ronnie comes along. Flex says, I've got to play the size game. Flex goes to 230, 240-ish. He still looked fantastic, but he never had that crisp, look to him. I think even when I used to see Kai a couple of times, I'm like, Kai, if you just came in dry, all that muscle mass, if you just came down a little bit and had that Dorian graininess, you'd be blowing these guys out the water, because you've been to enough shows, Ron and me, we've been to shows where you'll see a guy who's not the biggest on stage, but if he comes in with the right proportions, the muscle belly's in condition, he looks 20 pounds bigger on stage than some of these other guys. And when he walks past you in the audience, you're like, was that the same guy that was just on stage? But up there under the lighting, someone that's like 200 pounds can look 240 because he's just got that condition, the muscles around and stuff like that. So then you get the guys that go in at 260, you go in that little bit over, you just look shittier. Whereas if you had to come in at 250, you would have looked 270, not 250. So it's all an illusion on stage, but they don't want to. They're always like, I'm weighing 275. It's like, who cares? It doesn't matter. On stage, and it's an illusion. It's how you look.
I mean, Rami's a perfect example. I honestly feel if he would come in a little smaller, he's so
Easy.
big. He was 300 pounds exactly at the Arnold Classic. If he was like 280, I'm just throwing a number out there. It's crazy detail and grainy, dry condition. I don't think there's many people that could beat him.
And the thing is, looking like that, he'd still look 300 on stage under the lighting. But that's why I said it. That's why I said about when Hardy did well at the Olympia, because everyone up there looked great, but Hardy had that conditioning where your eyes just automatically kept going to him because it was something different again. Whereas in the 90s, a lot of guys had that conditioning, so you'd see it regularly. But now, when someone comes out with conditioning like that, you can't help but go, oh my God! You just keep looking at them because they look so different. Yes. Somebody like Phil could be bigger and stuff, but when you see this conditioning, you just keep going, holy shit, look at that conditioning on this guy. It just looks incredible when you see it now.
Yeah, I've heard guys preparing for the Olympia tell me, I'm going to go for a more fullness at the Olympia. I'm probably not going to be as conditioned. And I'm thinking second call out, third call out, big mistake. They want it all. They want size. They want everything. Don't think you're going to come in less conditioned and do well at the Olympia or any show. Condition's always going to stand out, always.
I'd rather come in. There's a few shows I came in even that little bit flatter, but the conditioning was there. And then even, like I said, even if you are that little bit flatter, as long as you don't go crazy, you can fill out for the night show or the finals and still come in better. But if you're already on that borderline where you're full and then you just get fuller and fuller, we've seen so many guys. I've seen, even though I think there's a picture of Rami before one of his shows, Ron, you've seen it a million times. How many times do we used to see Dennis James and all these guys a week or two out? You're like, this guy's going to fucking win. He looks incredible. When they walk out on stage the day of the show, you're like, what happened? It's like they were all drawn in. They were like full as anything. But yet something must go on in their mind this last week where it's like, I got to fill out now. I got to fill out. No, you don't. Just go in looking like that. Tan up, get a little bit of water out of your system and go in like that. You're going to do great. But no, in their mind, they've got to come in. They're like, oh, I spilt over. I did this. I did that. It's like, you ruined it. All that weeks of dieting, you ruined overnight doing this hocus pocus bullshit when just leave it alone.
I feel like they didn't do it as much in the 90s. I wasn't involved in the 90s, but I remember watching like Battle for the Olympias in the 90s and early 2000s. And I remember thinking you'd see them in the gym and they would look a certain way. And then they would go and they would show all the pictures of them on stage at the end of the Battle of Olympia. And I always thought every single guy looked better on stage than they did in the gym. It seemed like, I remember seeing like like Milos or Bob or these guys in the gym, they're like, they look good, but then you see them on stage and like, oh, they really brought it together. And I feel like now it's probably social media and all the fucking
It's Instagram.
it's Instagram. Like you see these guys that look like every single guy is cement, and then they show up and you're like, oh, he's watery. You know,
well, just look at the press conference from back in the 90s. Ron would tell you we'd all be sitting up there in our suits, whatever, but we'd all be like, everyone's looking like death, sucked in, their faces as skeletons. I watch the press conference now and I'm thinking, fuck, they look like me. They look like me 2 days after the show. And they're sitting there like this. I'm like, how can you be sitting there looking that tired, acting like you're going to go like this, and your face is as round as a bloody beach ball? I'm like, everyone used to be up there, like I said, our eyes would be sunken in. You could just look at someone like Kevin Leverone and go, well, he's in shape because you can see his face all sucked in. When you see their faces like that, you know they're in shape underneath. But now those guys are sitting there and they're so rounded in the face. I'm thinking, did he even die? Are we just going to rely on diuretics and hope that's going to pull this water out in the next hour or the next 24 hours? Because, okay, I'm not saying they don't train hard and diet hard, but there's something changed in the way they're prepping for shows now. And as Ron said, maybe it's these gurus that, hey, try this, try that. I got this new thing. Let's really carb up and this and do that. It's like if you're already full already in carb, there's no need to carb up and stuff because you're not going to go get any big. You're only going to start spilling over. And like I said, some of those guys, when you see them at the press conference now and they're already fat in the face and they're sitting there eating during the press conference, I'm like, it's okay. You can maybe miss a meal. You know, you're not going to lose any muscle. So.
Well, Instagram has really it's created a lot of letdowns at contests because you see these progress pics that they take in the very best lighting, like their bathroom at exactly 4 p.m. when the sun's coming in like that, like in Indiana Jones where it had to come in exactly the right angle. And every little vein, it's perfectly highlighting everything. And stage lighting is not like that. Stage lighting is brutal. It's merciless. It's very strong lighting. And so nobody looks as good now as what they've been posting online. So you're always disappointed. And plus the filters. We won't even get into the filters. Jeez,
that's why I remember the good old, that roller door at Gold's Gym there at the end of the dumbbell rack. Right there during the morning time when they put that roller door up, anyone that was in shape would be down there posing right in that mirror. Had the perfect lighting coming in. The shading was just right. Well, how many times now do you see when I think Rami, there was Ruley, but these guys are freaks anyway. But as you said, they'll go in for that bathroom shot and they'll get that one overhead lighting where they get right under it and it puts the perfect shadows right over the body. You're like, wow,
that magic mat. There's that one bathroom at Oxygen Gym in Kuwait that they all take pictures at.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Nathan, Ruley, Rami. They all look like.
The mirror he's talking about too, though. It's in the first room of Gold's Venice, all the way at the back. And dude, everybody, you could be under normal lighting, you'd look like 6 weeks out. You'd get there at the right times of morning or late afternoon, and you look amazing.
I was in Sydney 2 weeks ago filming for Sam's Fitness, and I stayed in the hotel there. And in the bathroom, it had those inset lights like that. I got out the shower, had the shower door open, and where you walk into the hotel room, they've always got that wall mirror. Fuck, I got out the shower and stood under that light. I thought I was 6 weeks out. I'm like, Lee, this is the comeback.
If
I wasn't naked, I would have taken a photo, but I couldn't be bothered going to get my phone. I just stood there in awe of myself. I said, hey, looking as shit as I am right now, if this light's making me look like that, I was like, wow.
Right. Yeah. Some of those hotels can really make you look good, man.
Well, you see it too. Like, it must just be, like I said, every hotel, when you walk in the room, they always have that light that's pressed in overhead. Because I think I just saw some pictures from the last show in Chicago Pro and all that, where they're taken in the hotel room, but it's right in the doorway because you see the hotel door behind them, standing under that one light because there's always the door behind them, the sliding cupboard off to the right or left, and they're standing there. I think Milos took some of Max Charles and that in the same doorway. I said, every hotel's got that special light.
That's LA's the best.
Those pictures were crazy. Yeah. Ron, you said, I know you were talking about a little while ago, I mean, it was a couple of years ago now, about you said you were waiting till you were 50 to do a Masters competition. Did you ever do that? Or are you going to do that?
No.
Well,
I need a new shoulder. I've been needing a shoulder replacement for a couple of years. I've been putting it off. But honestly, you know what? I could get a pro card if I was very strategic about it, because there's so many ways to. in my area, like if I could suck down to classic physique, which in the NPC, I would have to get down to 182. It would be very, very tough, but I could do it if I really, really had to. Although my best weight has always been like between 200 and 205, which it's too small really for heavyweight, because I'm standing next to guys that are 225 and a quarter that were like 280 in the off season.
Yeah.
But I realized, I came to terms a long time ago, I don't have the best genetics. So it was always a hobby for me, and I wanted to do well. I always trained for the shows to win the shows, but I knew I was never going to be anything special, and I was never going to make a dime at it. So if I compete again someday, that's fine. If I don't, that's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah. It just popped in my head when we were talking about, when you said you were 51, I was like, I remember you saying that, but you threw a good side chest and crab and everything though. Those are good shots for you.
I'm a master of illusion. I've helped a lot of people out with posing because I know exactly how to hide flaws and emphasize strong points. Like Frank Zane was probably one of the greatest ever at that. And if you master that, you can take a physique that's really like a 6 and make it look like an 8, maybe even a 9 if you're really good.
That can be your guru name. We'll call you Ron Harris / David Copperfield.
David Copperfield, yeah.
Master illusionist.
I mean, honestly, the only reason I would want a pro card is just because it's a stupid reason. It's just like Palumbo said it at one time. I think he compared it the same way. It's like a college degree. It's like, here, you did it. You accomplished this goal and you achieved this level or whatever. But
and then Instagram and Facebook, you can go IFBB Pro Ron Harris.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, I know a lot of guys around my area, New England area, that got pro cards, and I kicked their asses so many times in shows. I'm nothing special, but they're worse than me.
Yeah.
So it kind of rankles my fur when people that suck worse than me are pros. Yeah. Because I know what the pro is supposed to look like. Because like I came up in that era of the 90s when you saw a pro, you're like, oh my God. They were all outstanding. They were all specimens.
Even the ones that didn't turn pro. Remember back in even Gold's. Remember like Edgar Fletcher and some of these guys that never got their pro cards. I mean, these were guys that.
Corey Liedermeyer. There were so many great amateurs back then.
I mean, like these guys were just knocking on the door every time. You're thinking, how can this guy not be pro? Because you'd see him, you're like, he has to be a pro. No, and these were just like the top amateurs. I mean, it was like incredible.
Yeah.
It took Bob Ciccarello like 20 years of competing to turn pro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He looked awesome too.
Yeah, Bob was good.
He looked awesome.
And that's the thing now, like you said, yes, I don't take nothing away from anyone that trains, but some of these people now, they've only got 12 months, maybe 2 years of training. They go into a show where the competition may not be that good, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm a pro. It's like, Jesus.
I had a guy message me last week that he's been hinting he wants to do a show, and he wanted to, show you can't. I said don't plan on anything now because of COVID.
Yeah.
The shows you end up prepping, and then the show gets canceled, and you wasted all that time and money. But he said, well, if I win this show, and he was talking about like one of the local shows in Boston, New England, or the Cutler Classic, he goes, do I get my pro card from that? I'm like, no, you don't. And let me tell you something. I said, I have to. I'm very blunt with these people, and a lot of them never contact me again. But I don't care. I can't lie to people.
I know the feeling.
I said, you're nowhere near. I said, you need to look at what pros look like and be honest with yourself. You don't look a damn thing like that. Maybe in a few years you will, but right now you're nowhere ready to be up there with people like that. And they a lot of them get very upset. Like, what do you mean? Because they're on Instagram, they post a picture and they get 500 likes, and they have people saying, dude, you're awesome. And girls saying, oh my God, you're the sexy. They get their egos fed, and they think they get this delusion that they're something they're not.
Have you noticed too? They will do that too. Like I said, they'll get that perfect lighting at their gym, at their home. Say they're doing a side chest shot. Say they're like an amateur bodybuilder and they're in the same stature of someone like Bonac, and they'll get a picture of Bonac doing a side chest and them doing a side chest, and they'll put it together, and someone's like, "Oh my God, you're almost there." You'd give him a run for his money, and you're thinking, "What planet are you people on?" It's like, seriously. I said, do you know what Bonac actually looks like in person, and to be on stage with him? Yeah, you can take, anyone can take a picture by himself in the right lighting and look like Mr. Olympia. But when you actually stand near Mr. Olympia, it's like, boom, there's fucking reality just hit you up the side of the head. Yeah. It's like,
I like to see
a guy in my area did that with a picture of him and Arnold side by side in the side chest. I'm like, dude, Let me tell you, Arnold, one of his pecs is bigger than like your entire torso.
But I bet
It's funny, Ron. A guy in my area did the same thing. And we're just like, what the hell are you? What are you thinking?
But I bet all the comments were, "Oh my God, you look just like him." You're right.
They were.
And then they start believing all this shit. I'm like, seriously? I'm
getting close.
I used to laugh at how many times do we see this, Ron? When you'd go to the Mr. Olympia, here you got back there the biggest, best bodies in the world, and you go to an expo and here's these doofuses. Look, I give them credit. If you're into training, I got nothing against you, but they'd put on these tank tops and come strutting around the expo, and they've got someone like Dorian can have a picture. And then they'll take a photo. They'd walk over to their girlfriend's phone, look at it. No, take another one. They go back, and then they'd post it on something like, Get Big or something, and people would be like, "Oh wow, you should, man, look at your arm compared to Dorian." I'm thinking, really?
Well, I have to confess that I mastered out angling because I figured out a long time ago, if I take a picture next to someone like Lee, there's no way I'm gonna, that's another species of hominid. That's not a human. So I learned how to angle, and they actually in my New England area they call it ronning. They actually made a phrase, a verb out of it.
That's pretty awesome.
You got Ron'd pretty bad in that picture, dude.
You got Ron.
But I haven't. That's pretty awesome. It. That's why in my pictures it's always the same side, it's always the same angle. But I did what I had to do.
I learned just to not take pictures with pros. Period.
True. I mean, that would be another solution.
The last pro I took a picture with was Seth Feroci, and I saw that photo. I'm like, that's it. Nah, I'm done. I'm good. I don't need photos of pros.
I would laugh there because some of these guys that actually see it, and I'd see them with their girlfriends. So I'd be in line, you'd be shaking hands with somebody else. You look over and you can see them like they're getting ready. They take their jacket off and they'll be like, "Do you mind?" "Oh, it's okay. Do whatever you want." I have guys take the whole top off. But when they get in there, it's like they grab your hand to shake it, and they're squeezing so hard they're trembling, and they're like this. I'm like, "Mate, just breathe. It's a photograph. You'll be okay." And they're like, and as I said, they're holding your hand, and it's just trembling because they're flexing so hard. I'm like, "Just relax, mate. It's a photo." It's like you're gonna pop a blood vessel. Just take a
nobody
photograph.
gives a shit either. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
But like I said, then I'd walk over. As soon as I did walk over to the girlfriend, have a look at it, and one more. I'm like, "Oh, what? Wasn't the right angle? Wasn't the right lighting?"
And then on the Instagram comments, they're like, "Bro, you're bigger than him."
Yeah. Or you get the one, because I'd always shake hands and just do the thumbs up this way or something. And they're like, "Oh, do you mind if we do the other side?" They'll have a tank top on. I say, "Why is that your better side?" Yeah, I'm big. And I'm looking at them going, "Mate, you look the fucking same both sides." But those guys would want it. Girls sometimes always do it, but guys would actually be like, "This is my bigger arm. I got to do this side." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. Here we go." It's like Jesus.
There's no bigger arm when you're taking a photo with Lee Priest.
No,
forget about it. Your arms are small.
There's a couple, but I just laugh and go, "Sure, if that's your bigger side, go right ahead." It's like,
well, I legit do have one small. Can you see the scar? I tattooed over it. I tore that back. I tore that in 2011.
Yeah.
Oh, your tricep.
Yeah, they put it back on, but it was never the same again.
Did it have a good? I was training with my mate Richard at getting ready for it could have been before the 06 Ironman. I think it was Richard. He had these the old Velcro wrist straps you could put on.
Yeah.
And we're doing the overhead dumbbell like this, and all I heard was this. I'm like, "Oh fuck, his strap come undone." It was actually his tricep. It just sounded like Velcro.
Yep.
Just like wow.
How did you do it, Ron?
It was probably half torn for many years because when the surgeon told me that when I woke up from the surgery, but it was half off. But I'll explain that later. But then I used to do I kickboxed for about 7 years and I used to do sparring, and I fell. Somebody kicked me or something, and I fell down. I put the arm down to block, to break the fall, and I felt it come right off. I didn't hear anything, but I felt it just go snap. And then when I woke up I got surgery pretty quick. I think I got within 3 weeks, I was able to get the reattachment. And the doctor said, we found like half of it was up here and the ends were blunt, which means that had been torn for years and it healed like halfway up toward the shoulder. I said, no. Right. For many years I had really bad, I thought it was like, tendonitis or something because my elbows were always killing me. And I went to get like Graston techniques and I tried all kinds of things, but it was torn the whole time. It was half torn. And then I fully tore it.
Yeah.
That's the thing with muscles, isn't it? It's like I always tell people, touch wood, I've never been injured in the gym, but my mates that there's like you always think if something's going to go, you might be like, oh, there's a little bit of pain, but it's not. It's just like if it goes, it's just like someone benching, boom, the pec goes. There's not like, oh, it's feeling a bit sore first. It's just like once it goes, but like you said, for all we know, for a year or two, it might just be half hanging on. And then all of a sudden, that one exercise you do, I've seen guys tear biceps warming up with 20-pound dumbbells because like I said, the biceps probably already that torn or hanging off. They just go, and you know, when people warm up too, it's like when you go heavy, everyone's focused. You see people warming up. Yeah, what'd you do on the weekend? Oh, fuck. It's like, you know, because you're not concentrating and shit tears like that. It's just like, it's a scary thing when you, that's why when I see people now sometimes going heavy, I'm like, yeah, when I was young, I loved going heavy. But sometimes the form these young kids use now when they're going heavy, I'm just like, oof. Yeah. It's like if I could go back in time and tell them, listen, mate, because you know, we all had it when we were young. Wait, you get to my age, you're going to get sore joints. We're like, oh, fuck off. You know, you just keep going. Yeah. But even when we went heavy, I think a lot of guys back then still use pretty good form. But some of the form I see now where kids are benching and doing stuff, I'm thinking, oh, shit, you're only 20. I'm thinking I used good form and I had aches and pains. But I'm thinking these guys now, when they get older, if they're still doing it, the pains and that they're going to have, it's like, oof, it's just like crazy. It's more about lifting the weight.
Social media. It's because of Instagram and Snapchat and all that shit. I see kids, all they do is like max attempts on deadlifts and squats. Yeah. They have barely any muscle, but they're trying to squat like 400 or 500 pounds, you know, shitty half reps, and they're all wrapped up and strapped up, and they've got the tripod or their friends filming them.
Yep.
And
I'm even waiting now because this strict curl things become the latest sensation. I'm waiting for the torn biceps to start happening soon because I'm seeing all these people trying to do these strict curls. It won't be long before there goes the biceps and stuff. And
Callum and who was he doing it with, Bumstead? When they they tried to do the 2-man 405-pound curl or something?
Yeah, was it Bumstead or was it the other guy? Who's the other guy that goes heavy all the time? It wasn't Castleberry, was it? No.
Well, Chris doesn't go heavy all the time. I don't know how he got roped into that.
I don't remember who it was.
And like I said, and that's how quick it happened, just like boom, something like that. And like I said, if you're going to be a bodybuilder, see, I never did. People go, Lee, what was your max on this? I said, if I couldn't do at least 5-6 reps minimum, I never went for a max. I said, I'm not a power lifter. And you got to understand, if you're bodybuilding, that's your career. Getting an injury that can ruin your career just ain't worth it. So I haven't got an ego where I can say, okay, I can squat 6 plates. Let me go 7 for 5. Let me go for 800 and just go for 1 rep. And then tear a quad. And wow, that was great. Thanks for coming. I just, like you said, that ego now just takes over. And as you said, social media, we've got to film it. And I saw a guy here, young kid. He doesn't compete anymore because he fucked himself up with gear. He was only 21, but he abused the gear so much here. His kidneys fucked up. But he used to train 20 minutes from me. But he'd put up videos, the leg press, totally loaded up. His mate's standing there pushing it, but he'd be like this. That's as far. But yet every comment, you're an animal, you're crazy, that's so strong. So they start believing all this shit. He's moving. Yeah. Like if this was the weight sitting on the stopper that you turn out, he never even turned the stopper out. He just pushed it up, went back down, pushed it up, went back down. If he had to actually bend his knees, it would have went crashing down on him. But every comment, you're an animal. How do you do that? Da, da, da. And now, like 21, 22, he's packed it in because he was actually getting ready for his show probably 2 years ago, and his guru had him on that much shit. He was actually turning like yellow, jaundicey and shit. He I was just like, unbelievable. Now he doesn't do it anymore at all. It just like,
quick story. Before I did one of my, I don't know if you follow my Instagram, probably not. You should. Ron Harris. It's at Ron Harris Muscle. The ones where I had the blonde highlights like you have right now, those pictures.
You like that?
Yeah, that was probably the best I ever looked. It was 2002 New England. But before the show, I was backstage with the other heavyweights, and this one guy was like bragging about he was a power lifter and he had national titles. He's like, yeah, I squatted 850 or 900. I don't know. It was something ridiculous. And I was like really feeling inferior because like, man, I'm thinking, geez, I've never squatted more than like, I don't think I've ever even squatted 500 for a good rep in my life. This guy must have the best legs ever. And, you know, my legs were always good. So I thought this guy's legs were going to be twice the size of mine. And when everyone took their shit off, I was like, oh my God, his legs suck. His legs are horrible. Mm-hmm. So strength does mean a lot.
Well, I saw that, this would have been probably a year ago. I was at World Gym and this guy was on the leg press. And again, loaded up as much as you can get. And he's sitting there and he's strapping his knees. But I could see his leg and I'm like, shit, he's going to snap his legs. But then again, like I have seen guys who are not big, but they're just naturally strong. So I'm thinking, well, fuck, maybe this guy's naturally strong. I hope to see something good. So by the time he strapped them up, 10 minutes or more has gone past. He finally gets down there. He sits down. He probably moved it that far for one rep and then got off. I'm like, fuck, I was pissed off that I waited all this fucking time to see this massive set. Not the thing that it took him that long to get ready for it. He went that far and got off. I'm like, what the fuck did that accomplish? It's like when I see guys who have calves like this and I look at the leg press and they're doing toe press and they've got like 8 plates a side. I'm like, you're using more for calves and some days than what I leg press. I'm thinking, how can your quad muscle be this big, but you're using more for calves? I'm like, what's going on here? It's like, they get on the standing calf and they'd put the stack on. They'd put.
That was a good look.
Yeah, that's a good look for sure.
It was a good year. It was a good. Yeah, I should have just stayed like that.
Maybe Scott can pull it up for like properly and.
Do you ever think that when you say like 2002, because people always post up pictures of me sometimes, I'm like, I remember that. That was in 2000 and like say 2. Then you go, holy fuck, that was 18 years ago. Where did time just boom? It's like even thinking about World Gym now. When I was last in World Gym would have been out in 05, 04. And I'm thinking, Jesus, look how long ago that was now. It's like time just, whew. Remember when you were young and the parents go, as you get older, time goes quicker. You're like, yeah, whatever. It's like, but it's true. I'm thinking, Jesus, where did that time go when people put up videos? Lee, this was a good year. This motivates me. I'm like, stop sending me this shit because it depresses me. It's like, yeah, it motivates you. But when I think back, I'm like, oh, my God, that was 18 years ago. I look back at even like the first pro show in 93. We'll be up in 2023 soon. I'm thinking, holy shit. I'm like, where?
Yeah. Well, speaking of time, we've had Ron for like an hour and 25. You got time for a couple more, Ron?
Give me a couple more, but then I gotta go make a burger. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Burger.
Okay, you're
not vegan. Oh shit, you just upset.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a carnivore. I love meat.
Yeah. So you've attended a plethora of shows, obviously. Yeah. Is there one show that sticks out in your mind, like your favorite show? If you could have only gone to one of them, which one would it have been? Like which one really blew your socks off?
91 Olympia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was Lee's last win. It was Dorian's first Olympia. You had Vince Taylor, I think, was third. You had Labrada.
Yeah.
Barry DeMay. It was just such a great show, and it was in the Walt Disney World Dolphin Hotel in Orlando. And you had like the Barbarian brothers walking around. You had Ronnie Coleman working security. Nobody knew who he was.
Nice.
I just mentioned that because Dave asked me today what physique did I admire the most, and I just said Paul Dillette. But I said, apart from Paul, I said the one thing that stands in my mind, and I actually said this morning talking to Dave, was same thing, 1991, when that stage turned around. Because remember, it turned around. And
it was always the same song, too.
Yeah.
Right, and it was right here, right now. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and then it's like as that stage turned around at the 91 Olympia, and Lee Haney was just standing there like that, because I think the year before it was drug tested, wasn't it? And everyone didn't look as good. So everyone was a bit down. So this year, when that stage turned around, you just had Lee Haney standing there, just like, holy shit.
Imagine if Lee Haney continued.
That's the best he ever looked the last time.
Imagine if he kept going and tried to keep up with Dorian, he may have been Ronnie essentially. You never know, because he's only 31 when he retired.
Right.
So I mean, what would he have looked like at 37 if he kept, on that trajectory? Who knows? Who knows?
I really don't think Lee was ever heavy on the drugs at all.
No.
So had he pushed like a lot more food, a lot more heavy weights, a lot more drugs, I'm sure Lee could have been much bigger than he was.
Because Lee was always, I trained to stimulate, not annihilate.
Stimulate, don't annihilate.
Remember all those videos with him and Rope Man training together? And they would have been old movies.
I love Lee.
That was the old VHS, wasn't it? Or beta tapes you have to put into this big machine, kids. You'd have to watch them.
Yeah. Right. So it wouldn't be, Lee, it wouldn't be a show with you and I if we didn't bring up Bigfoot. So I know I've watched your Q&As, Ron. I know you can get into some Bigfoot and some Loch Ness and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Cryptids.
Yeah, cryptozoology. Yeah. Lee and I get into that pretty often.
Ron would remember. Remember Giorgio that used to be the promoter of the San Francisco?
Yeah, he's the one that's on the Ancient Aliens all the time.
Do you see him on all those shows now? I'm thinking
the crazy hair.
Yeah. He's got his crazy hair. Here was Giorgio at the bodybuilding shows. His hair would be slicked back in a suit. And the next time I see him, the UFOs and this, I'm thinking, what, Giorgio? What the fuck happened? I didn't even know you're into UFOs. I would have spoke to you a lot more if I knew you're into that crazy stuff. Yeah, in those like Chariots of the Gods type things on the documentaries. There's Giorgio talking about the UFOs and aliens. I'm like, woo.
Dennis Wolf is huge into that too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
He went on a tour. Who wrote Chariots of the Gods? He was a Swedish guy, I think.
Yeah, he's on those shows with Giorgio sometimes. Yeah, he's like an older guy. He's like I call him like the David Attenborough of UFOs because he's always on there. Yeah.
Dennis went on a tour that guy put on, and he took you to a bunch of different places in Central America with, he was saying, look at the way this pyramid, this proves that the aliens, anyway, it was cool. But yeah, I believe in all that shit.
But did Ron, did you ever watch that show Jeff and I watched where they go into the jungle, into the forest in America, and one gets on the hill and goes, okay, I'm going to call Bigfoot. Arr, arr. And the other one goes, yes, I heard him.
It's called Finding Bigfoot. It was on History Channel.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great show that is! I tell you.
They never found him.
No. Yeah. Then they go, that's a squatch for sure. Listen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a squash. We hear.
No, they and then they take a branch and knock on a tree with it, and then they listen. You'd hear something knock on a branch a mile away. There you go. That's a big one.
Like this.
It's gotta be.
Hold on. Listen. Okay, I'm going to do it now. Oh. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I'm losing faith in Bigfoot. I'm really losing a lot of faith.
Yeah. It's too bad.
I want Bigfoot to be real. I really do. Of course.
I just want Bigfoot. Even just a good photo of Loch Ness, I'd be happy. It's just like. What is the thing? We talk about space so much, and really they say, the deepest parts of the ocean are still so undiscovered. So who the hell knows what's down there?
Yeah,
Megalodon, supposedly, they're still running around down there.
Yeah.
60-foot great whites.
I actually saw that the Meg Part 2 is coming back with Statham, so I love that movie when Statham goes, it's a Meg. I was like, what the
yeah. Apparently, I heard there was the one show on Netflix or something, one of the Bigfoot shows. I've seen them all, and it was a panel of scientists and cryptozoologists and stuff, and one guy had this theory, this guy and this woman, that there were different types of like humanoids way back, and Homo sapiens are the ones that eventually became the dominant force, but there was another kind that was like larger, like slightly larger, and I don't know, it was Homo something else, and it had supposedly died out, so they're thinking it could be some like a humanoid. It's not actually an ape, it's more human. And it's this, because it was a species of like humanoid at one time, and if a few survived or whatever. I've always said, like, what if there's only 24 of them or something, or what if there's only 100 of them? If there's only 100 of them, you're probably not gonna find one.
Well, you think about it. If we went back, let's say 100 years, 200 years back then, even now, there's some of those tribes in the Amazons that have never seen a car or a plane. Let's say one of those tribes, if we took Ronnie Coleman at his best, Marcus Rule at his best, Rami at his best, and shoved them in the Amazon, and that tribe come walking through and saw those three in the forest, they'd be like, what the fuck is that? It's like to them, that would be like some creature from God knows where. If they saw a bodybuilder like that, these tribes, they'd be like, holy my God. So who knows? Maybe there's some people in the forest that knew how to train, and they sort of
We could do a whole show on cryptozoology. I'm way into all that.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be if you follow bodybuilding, looking at those animals on stage.
What about you guys get into paranormal and demonology and all that?
Yeah, I like that.
Not too much. I've just started, actually, just a little bit, but more of the crypto stuff. But
you're way behind. Can you see that?
It looks like Linda Blair.
It is, yeah.
Ah, there we go.
Nice.
I know. I like all that stuff. That's why I love that movie. Which was it? What's that one with? This Australian guy. Where it's the true story based on the cop, and he became a priest now in real life.
Oh, yeah. That was I know him.
Something devil or something. And
Devil Inside. It wasn't. I didn't like that one.
Yeah,
it was a possession story where the guys got possessed in Iraq or Afghanistan.
He was a cop, but now in real life he still goes around with that priest doing stuff. So I think there must be something there. But also, I'd like to like these haunted places. I'd love to see where you'd actually see it goes, because you have those shows where they go around with their little things and go, oh, the temperature's different here, this thing's spiking. So, you know, I believe there has to be something out there, because I said, okay, you get a lot of nuts when it comes to UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, but then again, you get a lot of these people who are top of their field. They're either top astronauts, pilots. You know, they wouldn't be just going off saying crazy shit, so someone could call them crazy. So there has to be something to it somewhere. So.
Right. And then the history, it goes back so far. There's so many documented cases of Bigfoot type sightings from like the 1700s and even further. And it's like, it kind of makes you think, is it an elaborate hoax that has lasted for hundreds of years, or
look at those
not?
shows Giorgio's on that Ron's probably seen too, where they'll show you cave paintings where it's got like a guy with a spear chasing a buffalo, but then in the sky there's a painted dish-shaped object. It's like, how would they know about a flying dish-shaped object thousands and thousands of years ago? So they must have seen something.
Yeah. I think at some point we'll wrap this one up, but I think at some point we should have Ron back on, and we should do like a 45-minute crypto demonology, because I'm interested in like the demonology stuff and that you might know about. Ron, that'd be interesting.
If Ron gets out the Ouija board, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
No, do not mess with Ouija boards, people. I'm telling you right here and now. Yeah. But next, when we do that, I'll leave it so that you'll have to have me back, because I'll tell the story of how I was attacked by something in a hotel room in Columbus, Ohio in 2013.
What? Oh, wow. Okay. We're going to leave.
Honest to God truth happened.
I was going to say if it was 2006, Jeff, it was me in the chloroform, but I didn't want to tell him. But was that?
I'll never forget it. Trust me. And I was 100% sober and 100% awake when it happened.
Yeah. I have one mild thing that I blamed on marijuana at the time, but I don't, I wasn't even that high, but there's one thing, but that's awesome. We'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do that.
You got us all intrigued now, Ron.
I'd rather talk about that shit than bodybuilding anytime.
Yeah.
You're like me when I go live on stuff. When people ask training questions, I'm like, can't we talk about just general stuff in general life or anything? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, let's talk about Trump. That gets them going.
Yeah. Right.
I could give a shit about politics. It's terrible.
Same. All right, guys. Well, great show. Ron, thank you. Thanks for coming on, man. It was an honor to meet you and have you on the show. And we'll have you on again to talk about some more interesting stuff.
Yeah, it was good times, guys.
Get everyone thinking. Yeah, thank you. All right, great show, guys. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe.
You're going catabolic. Quick.
Losing my gains, what little gains I had left. Yeah.
Right. All right, everybody, like, share, subscribe, share with your friends. Let us know what you think in the comments. And for Lee Priest and Ron Harris, I'm Jeff Roberts, and we're out.
Cool, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ron. Take care, brother.
Bye.